Welcome to English Story Lab, the channel where you learn English by listening to stories, sentence by sentence. Here is how to use this episode. Listen once just for the story, letting the words wash over you. Then listen a second time, this time for the phrases. We will teach you 8 useful expressions and explain each one clearly along the way. Today's story is a famous one, retold in clear, graded English. It is called The Necklace. It's about a woman who borrowed something beautiful for a single, glittering evening. She longed to shine just once. But that one night would cost her far more than she could ever have imagined. So settle in and let's begin. Mathilda was born beautiful, but she was born poor. She was convinced, deep down, that she had been meant for a finer life, for soft carpets, silver dishes, and rooms flooded with warm light. Instead, fate had married her to a modest clerk named Loisel, a gentle man with a small salary and simple tastes. Their rooms were shabby, their meals plain, and the sight of it all wore on her nerves. Day after day, she ached for a world that lay entirely beyond their means, a world of elegance and ease she could picture in vivid detail, yet never once touch. She suffered endlessly over the fine things she lacked, and with every passing year, a quiet bitterness settled deeper into her heart. One evening, Loisel came home beaming, an envelope held out like a treasure. Inside was an invitation to a grand ball, the sort of glittering affair that important people attended. He had expected her to be delighted. Instead, Mathilda burst into tears. She had nothing suitable to wear, she protested, nothing fine enough for such a night. Loisel fell silent. For months he had been quietly setting aside a little money, coin by coin, hoping to buy himself a hunting gun. Without a word of complaint, he handed the whole sum to her. With what he had managed to scrape together, Mathilda bought a beautiful gown. And yet, even then, her joy was incomplete. A dress alone would not do. She had no jewels. To keep up appearances at the ball, Mathilda needed something that sparkled. It was Loisel who hit upon the answer. Her wealthy friend, Madame Forestier, might be persuaded to lend her a jewel. So Mathilda called at the grand house, and her friend threw open a glittering case of treasures. Among them lay a magnificent diamond necklace. Her heart leapt. She thanked her friend warmly and drifted home on a cloud of happiness. On the night of the ball, she was the loveliest woman in the room. Men sought her out, women looked on with envy. She danced and laughed, lost in a whirl of delight. But much later, undressing at home, she reached for her throat and the necklace was gone. Let's pause and look at 3 phrases from the first half of our story. First, beyond their means. Your means is the money you have. If something is beyond your means, you cannot afford it, it costs more than you can pay. Mathilda dreamed of a life beyond their means. Second, scrape together. This means to gather money slowly and with great effort, a little at a time, when you don't have much. Loisel had to scrape together his savings to buy her gown. And third, keep up appearances. This means to hide your real situation and look richer, happier, or more successful than you truly are. Mathilda borrowed a necklace to keep up appearances at the ball. 3 lovely phrases, say them with me if you like. They searched everywhere across the floor, along the street, through every fold of her gown. The necklace had truly vanished. Loisel roamed the freezing streets until dawn and came back empty-handed. Seized with dread, they reached a desperate decision. They would replace the necklace in secret and never breathe a word of the truth. After days of searching the jewelers of Paris, they found one almost identical. The price was 36,000 francs, an absolute fortune. When at last the moment came to return it, Mathilda put on a brave face and handed back the case as calmly as she could, praying her friend would not lift the lid. Madame Forestier, faintly annoyed by the delay, set it aside without so much as a glance. Now the real price came due. To pay for the necklace, the Loisels borrowed from everyone they could, moneylenders, acquaintances, and strangers alike, signing papers they scarcely dared to read. They surrendered their comfortable home and crowded into a cheap attic room. Mathilda dismissed the maid and took on the heavy work herself. She scrubbed the floors, hauled water up flight after flight of stairs, and haggled in the markets over every last coin. To make ends meet, Loisel sat up late into the night, copying documents for a handful of extra pennies. Year after weary year, they chipped away at the enormous debt. 10 long years slipped by in this fashion. A decade of relentless labor transformed Mathilda entirely. Her once soft hands grew rough and reddened. Her delicate face turned lined and drawn. Her hair was left uncombed, her voice grew shrill, and the graceful young woman of the ball slowly faded away. Under the sheer weight of poverty, her youthful beauty had worn thin, and yet, strangely, she felt a flicker of pride. She had endured, and she had come through it. Then, at long last, the final installment was paid. Every franc, every centime, the whole crushing sum was settled. The Loisels owed nothing to anyone on earth, and Mathilda, older now and worn, let herself linger on the memory of that one shining night so many years before. One Sunday, strolling through the park, Mathilda caught sight of Madame Forestier, still youthful, still radiant, still rich. On a sudden impulse, she crossed over and confessed the whole story: the lost necklace, the secret replacement, the 10 punishing years. Her friend listened, astonished. Then Madame Forestier took Mathilda's roughened hands in hers and said gently, "Oh, my poor Mathilda, but my necklace was only paste." It turned out the diamonds were nothing but glass, worth 500 francs at the very most. Mathilda stood rooted to the spot. 10 years of struggle, 10 years of sacrifice, and it had all been for nothing. The treasure she had wrecked her life to replace had never, in truth, been worth anything at all. Now let's learn the last 5 phrases. Put on a brave face means to hide your fear or sadness and appear calm and cheerful. Mathilda put on a brave face when she returned the necklace. Make ends meet means to have just enough money for the things you need, no more. The Loisels worked hard just to make ends meet. Wear thin means to slowly become weaker, older, or less fresh over time. Mathilda's beauty wore thin during those 10 hard years. It turned out introduces a surprising truth discovered at the end. It turned out the necklace was fake. And finally, for nothing. If you do something for nothing, you gain no reward, your effort is completely wasted. Mathilda suffered for 10 years, all for nothing. So there is our story, Maupassant's famous tale of pride and cruel irony. A woman borrowed a necklace to shine for one evening, lost it, and spent 10 years in poverty to replace it, only to learn the jewel had been fake all along. Now, let's check your understanding with 3 quick questions. 1. Why did Mathilda burst into tears when her husband brought home the invitation? 2. How did the Loisels manage to pay for the new necklace? And 3. What was the shocking truth that Madame Forestier revealed at the very end? Pause the video and answer in your own words, out loud if you can. Then write your answers in the comments. I love reading them. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. Stories like this one are the finest way to grow your English, naturally, gently, and without stress. If you enjoyed the necklace, stay right here. Our next story is another twist of fate where one small choice changes everything. Tap that subscribe button so you never miss a new episode, and let the next story play. Keep listening, keep dreaming, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.